person sees something like this and they believe it's wrong, and they snap a photo or video and share it on social media, what legal ramifications could arise from that post, both from the person making the post and for the person perceiving to be doing something wrong?
Well, first and foremost, the individual that posts that photo on social media is by and large exempt from any civil or criminal liability or penalty. The way that the internet works is that absent posting child pornography or something that runs afoul of the First Amendment, you have virtual immunity from any fallout if you, as a concerned citizen, post a photograph like that.
Is it just the fact that they're posting a photograph, or is it maybe they wrote something in the status that maybe?
Well, now I think we need to distinguish between the photograph itself and commentary, because like anything else, the First Amendment doesn't give you ultimate carte blanche to say whatever you want about somebody unless they may happen to be a public figure, and even then there are still some guidelines. But I think what's important is that the individual posting the photograph, by and large, walks away without any ramifications of any consequence. Now, to answer the second part of that question, in terms of liability, civil or criminal, in terms of the individual depicted in that photograph, that's going to depend on whether or not, simply stated, the individual depicted in that photograph has violated criminal law. And in this situation, unless there are specific state, local, or federal laws that mandate that what that individual is doing is a violation of the law, they may be stupid, they may ultimately be chuckleheads, but there may not be any direct criminal liability.
Two questions here. Based on that photo and just that instance alone, is there anything in that photo that that person on the motorcycle is doing that is illegal?
Well, context is everything in life, and it is certainly on the internet. I don't know, and we don't know, whether or not that was a picture that was snapped in some guy's backyard, in his front yard, or whether he was doing 75 down the Katy Freeway or down the Merritt Parkway in Connecticut. We don't know. Absent that context, I'm not going to go out on a limb and say that that individual may face the specter of criminal prosecution. But assume with us, for the sake of this discussion, if this individual was doing 75 down the Katy Freeway in rush hour traffic, then there's a question of whether or not he has put that small child at risk.
Sort of like child endangerment.
Correct.
Getting back to the post, now what if the poster, the person who posted the picture, wrote some malicious things in the comment? Would they be facing any kind of legal actions based on what they've said about the motorcycle driver or whatever post they're posting?
The term malicious is fairly global. Depending on what it is that the poster ultimately said would determine his or her civil liability. But I think the default position on the internet is that you can say almost anything that you want with virtual impunity before you're going to find yourself on the wrong side of a civil suit.
A photo is shared on social media showing someone doing something illegal. Should the person doing the illegal act face charges?
And again, it depends on context. It depends on what we learned in journalism school: who, what, where, when, why, and how the individual has come to do what they're depicted is doing. And in the absence of that context, the backstory, like we love to say in TV, it's going to be difficult to say. Obviously, we've seen situations where people have taken video of themselves, posted on their Facebook page, engaged in criminal wrongdoing, and ultimately been prosecuted and convicted. Without knowing more, it's difficult to say whether or not that individual with his young child on the bike is going to have to face justice at some point. If we put people in jail every time they did something that was idiotic, knuckleheaded, or just flat out wrong on Facebook, the jails would be bursting at the seams. It's not about being morality police, because we can't legislate morality, and you can't fix stupid. And in that situation, they'll have to answer to a higher authority other than the people on Facebook or law enforcement.
Okay, I think I might know the answer to this, but if someone posts something on social media and the person who is the subject of that post has done nothing illegal, what trouble could the original poster face, civilly or criminally or anything?
Well, first of all, criminally, I can't think of any statute that comes within an area code of putting the poster in harm's way. But think about it. If you haven't done anything wrong, then how are you damaged? If it's a situation where you haven't violated any criminal laws, you haven't violated society's norms, even if you do look like a knucklehead, you haven't been damaged, and it's going to be difficult, if not impossible, to go to court, spend a bunch of money, and obtain a judgment if at the end of the day you haven't done anything wrong.
Let me try asking it maybe a different way. Could someone who posted something on Facebook about somebody else, could that person then go and take the poster to civil court for something they thought was harmful to their image?
Again, it's going to depend on what was said, the nature of the photograph that was posted to social media, whether or not that individual was a public figure, whether or not the individual acted with actual malice. I mean, we can get off into a dissertation of libel and slander, but I think the short answer is you're really going to have to go to great lengths to find yourself on the wrong end of a civil suit and ultimately pay a judgment.
So essentially there's a lot of people out there on Facebook who want to be the morality police.
Obviously, in the 21st century, in the 24-hour news cycle and social media, we have a form of morality police. And sometimes what they do ultimately can save lives, or at least perhaps shame somebody into not repeating conduct that is, if not illegal, then at least chuckle-headed. The downside is we have the morality police, and sometimes they think they're the smartest or most moral people in the room, and sometimes that doesn't work out well for anybody.